Hi there, Scott here with Eat, Love, Pray RV. And I'm going to be talking to you today about our trip to Detroit and more importantly to the Henry Ford Museum. So I just got done doing this entire video and I didn't know that the sound wasn't recording. So anyway, I've gotten a little bit of extra practice at doing this here on this one. So hopefully this one goes nice and smooth and I can convey to each of you all of the things that were important to us. And so I've had a good rehearsal right before this. So here we go. We wanted to go to Detroit. I've been to Detroit for business over the years and really enjoyed it. Had the opportunity to go to the Henry Ford Museum and really loved that. But Becky had never gone. So we really wanted to put this on our list of to-dos as we were up in the area. So that's what we did. I want to start off, and as usual, I'm going to share with you where we stayed. When we're staying someplace, there's typically four things that are primarily the important factors for us. One is that it's convenient. We need to get someplace where we're not having to search real hard and cover a lot of terrain to get back to where we want to stay. That's a priority for us. We're driving a 45-foot coach. We're pulling a vehicle behind us, so convenient. We want to stay in some place that's safe, very important to us. And as we go to some of these bigger cities, and especially as we move east, we're less familiar with the places to stay, so it's very important to do some research on places that are safe. We haven't stayed in an unsafe place yet, so we're thankful for that. We want to stay someplace that's budget friendly. We've got a budget that we're trying to stick within each month. It becomes a little bit of a challenge also to try to find places that are going to fit within your budget. Sometimes we stay at a little nicer places and indulge ourselves a little bit in some nicer amenities. Other times we just want basic places to stay that serve the purpose for us of, again, being convenient and safe. And then the fourth thing after budget friendly would be we like a place, if possible, that our dogs, that they're going to be welcomed and there's a little area for them to run possibly. So we've got two dogs, Gus and Chloe. So those are the four components that are important to us. So where we decided to stay going to the Detroit area was a little out of Detroit. We stayed at the Wayne County Fairgrounds. Becky and I stumbled onto staying at Fairgrounds back in Green Bay. We had a recommendation there from someone local and hadn't even thought of Fairgrounds before, but what a great experience they have been. So we've stayed at two of them now. We like them. We really like county and city parks. They're well maintained. They're safe. They're secure. They've usually got a pretty budget-friendly price tag attached with them, and they're ran by the city or the state, and so there's a pretty good focus put there into that experience. So we stayed at Wayne County Fairgrounds. I'll attach how to get there, the website or whatnot on here. Real simple place, nothing too flashy. I was impressed that where we stayed, it lots of grass. We probably had 15, maybe even 20 feet in between each RV. Lots of grass, a nice picnic table, full hookups, 50 amp, 30 amp, water, everything full hookups. So really, really a nice place to stay. It really accomplished what we needed it to. We were grateful for about a day and a half that we were there. It just rained and rained and rained, so we didn't really care what it was like outside. We just stayed in the RV during that time. But when we were outside, really, really a nice place. I was able to get in some good bicycle rides there, some nice places to ride. Did that a couple of days in a row. Really, really enjoyed our time there at the fairgrounds. They had a festival come in, like an antique festival come in on that Saturday that we were there, and there was thousands of people through there, but we really didn't feel it there where we were staying in the RV portion of things. So I would highly recommend that. It was good. It accomplished, it checked off every box that we've got that we wanted to accomplish in finding a place to stay. So now let me move on to our main motivation for going to the Detroit area, going to the Henry Ford Museum. I think technically they call it the Henry Ford. I add museum on the end. I think it might have been called that before, but that's what it is to me. It is a great experience, and it's not just car stuff. I think when we would tell people that we were going to come out this way to go to the Henry Ford Museum, they thought, oh, it's just car stuff. No, it is Americana. It is a walk down the path of history in so many ways, in so much more than just automobiles. Henry Ford obviously had a passion for America, for history, for legacy, for some of the things that were being created in his time. He was obviously an innovator and an inventor, and many of the people that he surrounded himself were the same. So I'm going to walk you through what we did there. I'm going to actually split this up into two different videos. The first one, we're going to cover what's called Greenfield Village. That's the outdoor portion, and it is fantastic. It is unbelievable. Village, we're learning as we're back here heading further east. Village, township, towns, they're still called villages today. A lot of these little towns that we go through, it's the name of it with village on the end. So Henry Ford created Greenfield Village, and it is just that. It is a village. It is the size of a community that you would have experienced back in the early 1900s. Henry started his company in I believe it was 1903, if I'm not mistaken. I should know that. I'll double check that. 1903 is coming to my mind. And he created the village in 1929, so about 26 years later. Thank goodness that he had the foresight to understand that people were going to be interested in this. This is a part of our American history that needs to be told, and he did a great job creating this. I will tell you, if you're going to go through Greenfield Village, you will walk 6 to 8 miles. I didn't feel it while we were doing it, but afterwards, that evening, your feet and your legs might be a little bit sore, but it's that big. It is a massive place, but it is so interesting to walk through. So let me get right into it. Let me kind of set up, first of all, the atmosphere that you walk into. You walk into this village that is designed with early 1900s buildings and older, and they really do recreate what it was like if you were walking through the village back then. One thing you'll notice almost immediately is, as you're walking in, Ford has done a fantastic job of making the presentation of everything just near perfect. It is well maintained. Felt very similar to Disneyland or Disney World walking in the entrance. The iron gates and the well manicured flower beds. It was absolutely beautiful. So you get in there, and you're going to notice there's horse and carriage there, some horses with carriages going around. And so they take you back to those early 1900s where they were still very prominent. And you walk a little bit further and you start to notice these Model T cars driving around. And these old Model Ts, early 1900s Model Ts that they've got driving around. The men and women that are driving them are dressed up as they would have been back then, and era-specific dress attire, and you can actually go for rides in them. So you can go over and you hop in a short line and you can go for a ride in one of these Model Ts. One of the things that we thought was fascinating is not only all of the buildings, and I'm going to go through a number of those with you to give you a little bit of a flavor for what you're going to experience there, and hopefully ignite some emotion and some desire for you to want to go through the museum. But you'll notice that everything there works. They don't just have it as a prop. These things work. So let me start off with Henry Ford's house. He found his childhood home and brought it there to Greenfield Village. He had that, I don't know what the terminology would be. I'll use excavated. That's probably the wrong term, but had it, lifted and brought back to this location. Not only the exterior of the home structure, but you've got the windmill outside that is a working windmill. You've got the items inside. It was very important for him to track down the same things that he had in the home as a child. And so as you walk in this house of Henry Ford's family, this is from his perspective, everything how it was whenever he was growing up. So they've done a fantastic job of recreating this. It looks wonderful. So you've also got right across the street is the Wright Brothers home. He acquired the Wright Brothers home, the home that they lived in, and other things in the home that are significant. One of the things that Drew grabbed my attention that I really liked is there was a telegram there. The telegram that he sent back to his family, or they sent back, documenting or describing how this flight went for them. And it's just fascinating to see these things. So the Wright Brothers home is there. You've really got a history lesson that you're getting live and in person. And you're in the structures, you're around the things that actually formed history. So Henry Ford's childhood home, the Wright Brothers home. You've got the Henry Ford Motor Company. You can walk through where they started producing these automobiles. You get a sense of what the first assembly line was like. You get to go through the foundry of where they were making parts and out of steel or tools. You get to go through the machine shop where they would have been making everything to make these vehicles a reality. And you really get a history lesson as you walk through. But it's not, as I mentioned, it's not all about cars. So they've got a grist mill there, and it's got a working water wheel, and you go inside and you get to see how it's turning the stones and grinding the grain, and how things were made back then, and how they created more efficiency through creating better tools, right, and better processes. We went over to one of the stores there that, you know, looks like a barn, but we went over there to one of the stores, and that was where they were making fabric. And they actually had people running the looms, sewing and making the blankets and making the cloth, because they had to make the cloth, the fabric, before they could turn it into anything real special. And they've got a very, very unique piece of history there. It's the Jacquard loom, and this is basically the first computer program, I guess you would say. Jacquard used punch cards, and many of them, basically ones and zeros, to tell which thread to go where. And the innovation of that and many other things is it's just incredible. So you walk around, you've got people that they have dressed up for era specific. So as you're going into places and you're getting your history lesson, they're dressed like they would have been back in the early 1900s. They're walking around outside. They're riding old big-wheeled, two-wheeled bicycles, with the big wheel in the front. It's fascinating to walk around, and you really feel like you've been transported back into this little moment in history. We went into one house there, and they had just finished cooking lunch for themselves, and there was 4 or 5 of them, and they work there, and basically they're recreating every day what would have been done on that little farm, in that farmhouse, each day. The house does not have electricity. They've got a cold storage, a cellar down in the basement. You can go tour that. They've got they're grabbing coal to run to give them a heat source, to give them energy there to cook on, things like that, and wood. They've got the barn outside with animals and all of the machinery, and they're working. They're actually there working, and they were sitting down to eat their meal, and they would also explain what they're eating, how it was prepared, why this was an important staple of their diet back in the early 1900s. So very, 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 very impressive. Keep on going through the village. They've got things. I've mentioned many barns, and you can see how those worked and operated, and many of the original tools and equipment there. Again, this is a museum, an outdoor museum. They've got a printing press with a lot of the original equipment in there, and they are still making things that they sell today. So all of their shops that are making things there, they've got the was going to say foundry, but it's the machine shop. They've got glass blowing. They've got a print shop. They've got a pottery shop. All of those items that they are making, they're selling in their shop. So the printing on the tote bags and things like that, they've done that in the printing press. We went to the glass blowing venue there, and that was unbelievable. They had all of the furnaces going, and we sat in there for about 30 minutes and just learned how they blow the glass, how they make it, and they're actually making the projects that are going to be for sale in the shop. So it was wonderful to do that and to get an education and to see that, to see how they're how they're firing the pottery and making the pottery, and how they're making tiles and all of this. Again, they're actually making them right there on site. You're watching them doing it as they would have done it back in the early 1900s or beyond or older, and they're selling those items. So we went on one of the most fascinating structures. Now Henry, let me back up for just a minute. Some of the structures, he's done a church there, built a church in honor of his mother and his mother-in-law, very nicely done. He's moved some structures from over in Europe, got a giant windmill there. He has some significant homes there, some homes that were attached to slavery, and it tells a very compelling story, a very good story, a heartfelt story on each one of these locations of what went on there. He's got some other homes from over in Europe, and then many others. I mean, the Webster Dictionary, I know that'll date me just a little bit. Most kids won't know what that is, but he's got Webster's home there, and it is fascinating to go through and see the early dictionaries and the story of Webster and where he lived and how he lived. And this was his home. This is where this dictionary was created. And so he's done a great job of getting all of these really old but historical and significant structures and bringing them in there and making a village out of them, making a town out of it. One of the most fascinating for me, I liked Henry Ford's house, I liked the Wright Brothers' house, but I also liked Edison's homestead and Edison's workshop and his outbuildings. What I didn't know is Henry Ford worked for Edison. I believe he worked for him 6 years before he started the motor company. And he and Edison became good friends, and thank goodness Henry Ford saved all of these structures. Some of them, and they'll tell stories in there of different structures that were going to be just demolished. And Henry Ford scooped up many of these buildings, not just Edison's but others, and brought them to this location, recreated them. Most of them are created out of the same, they just moved them and piece for piece put them back together. If there was a piece that was not safe, they've obviously would have replaced that. But he was very, very intentional in making it very era specific and true to what was going on back then. So in the Edison exhibit, we'll call it the exhibit, they've got, the original generators and tools, and the shop is set up exactly the way that Edison had it. And all of these shops that you go through, you're getting to see firsthand, 5 feet away, how these inventions were created. And Edison was a very compelling person. He had goals of minor inventions every few days and major inventions every on a month scale, right? For his engineers and his helpers and inventors. And it was absolutely fascinating to walk through, and I just got a greater, deeper appreciation for these men and women that were pillars in creating not just our country, but innovations for the world. It was absolutely unbelievable. So the shops are incredible. At the machine shop, we bought some candle holders they were making on a lathe, and Becky wanted to get some of those little candle holders, so we bought some of those. Very, very neat place. Very, very neat place. They do have a couple of restaurants on site. The food was incredible. Surprisingly, it is not just like food that it's above average, right? The restaurants are nice. I think they've got 3 restaurants. You can actually eat in one that would have been in early 1900s, and it's actually, I mean, it's lit, it's candle lit, and in the middle of the day, it's very, very rustic, and their menu represents what the menu would have been like back then. You've got snack shops where they're making, you've got an old candy store and cookies and kettle corn and all of that. So it's a very, very nice time there. They've got some play areas for kids. Just a wonderful, wonderful place to go. So hopefully today I've ignited a little bit of a spark for maybe an interest that you might have now to go to the Henry Ford Museum, and specifically Greenfield Village. In the next episode, I'm going to be covering the indoor part of the museum. It's fascinating as well, equally as impressive, but completely different than the outdoor experience. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got comments, if you've got ideas, as we're traveling through America, we're living a dream that we've had, and we've got a loose agenda of where we're going through America. If you've got ideas and places that you feel that we need to stop, please contact me, elprv23@gmail.com. So if you haven't subscribed to our channel, if you would do that, I would appreciate it. Thank you for your time today. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll talk to you next time.